We just had Andrew Zimmern on, and Mark Herzlich is with us now from the ACC Network. Boston College, played with the Giants. Great story about life in general. What's your go-to food if you had the one thing you had to cook?
One thing I had to cook? I think a good burger is I'll go to good burger all the time. Now, I have a game day food, right? I think that when you imagine sitting on the couch watching a good game, it's like buffalo wings. I get stressed out when I can't find a good buffalo wing place when there's going to be a big game on. And quite honestly, I got buffalo wings for the national championship game this year, and I had to finish them all in the first quarter because the game got so bad that I was like, yeah. I'm going to go to bed and not order them later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mark, this is a very interesting time for college football.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got stories today. The Pac-12 is on campus at SMU.
Yep.
Maybe thinking about expanding there. You do a lot in the ACC, and that is a league that can't really do anything about itself for quite a long time because of the rights that they have, but a league that is now maybe changing a little bit too, because it was Clemson and everybody else for a little bit, and then maybe last year, Clemson doesn't win the league, and then this year they had to really fight to win the league.
Yep.
FSU's coming up, North Carolina's coming up. What do you think about the future of the ACC?
Well, I think I'm excited, right? I think part of the problem with the big dogs, right? When your big dogs are not performing like big dogs, like FSU and Miami, it's hard to say, okay, this is an elite conference. Now, Florida State has shown this past year that they can play at an elite level. Now, can Miami and Florida State both play to the level that they're recruiting? Because right now, they're both recruiting at a super high level, and they're getting guys that the old Florida States, the old Miamis will get. Will they allow enough continuity in the coaching staffs to allow those players to develop and actually play? And so I think, I'm excited for that. I think that, again, you look at another team with Mac Brown, what he's doing at UNC, and probably the best quarterback in the country in Drake May playing there. That's another one of those teams that could be one of those surprises. So if you can have Clemson, Florida State, and Miami as solid programs, and then every now and then get the UNC or the Wake Forest or one of these teams that has a surprise big year, I mean, it can be good. Now, they're never going to be the SEC, not right now, and probably, is not a popular opinion amongst my peers, but I think the SEC is on just a little bit, it's at a different level. I mean, it's where they are, the school, it's just built for football to succeed at a high level. ACC, I don't think as much, but they can still be very, very competitive.
How important is it to have success and have some of those sleeping giants wake up with all of the turmoil when it comes to realignment, which we know is still controlled by networks and monies and grant of rights, but to have them waking up?
Ask the Big 12 what it was like to have TCU in the championship game. Yep. Before the season, it was oh, there might not be a Big 12 anymore. And then TCU goes to the championship game the Big 12 is something we need to realize. So having those other teams, outside of the perennial – first of all, if your perennial teams aren't good, it's not going to be good for your conference. But when you have those other teams that hey, we got the guy, like UNC. I mean, just again, I mentioned him already, but a Drake May, a difference maker at quarterback like that, I mean, they could be what you talk about for the next 3 years.
And Big 12 has had Baylor, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Rise above and hold the candle.
Yeah, hold the candle. And I think the reason why they're not in the conversation as a top conference isn't because they don't have successful teams. It's just the variety of successful teams makes it fun as a Big 12 fan, but on the national level, you can't count on every year an Alabama or a Georgia or, something like that.
Yeah.
The 12-team playoff comes in one more year.
Yeah.
That, I think you're starting to see the transfer portal really affect things where you can't hoard people anymore. The Alabamas and the Georgias are still always going to be good.
Yep.
But they used to be able to keep, their guys that could contribute on other teams away from contributing on that team that could maybe beat them once in those good years. The 12-team playoff probably changes that a lot too, and that now you've got guys that don't feel the need to get in the portal and go chase that opportunity and leave somewhere like a a West Virginia, even if they had like a 10-2 year, to like go to Alabama just so he could have that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's different guys are in different points of their college. You usually talk about colleges as your career, but now you can make a career out of college football too.
Yeah.
And when you look at different people, again, I'll go back to ACC just because that's what I know the best. But like Sam Hartman, quarterback at Wake Forest, this is a perfect situation for him in the transfer portal. He's going to transfer out for his 5th year and go to Notre Dame, right? Like a huge brand name school that if he can succeed there, he can boost his draft stock. So, I think it keeps players. It also, in the good sense, it can allow players different opportunities when they're in kind of a niche program like Wake Forest, have a little bit more expanded opportunity at places like Notre Dame.
The only people as sad as Wake Forest that Sam Hartman left are the teams that now Notre Dame has to play.
Right.
And the teams that are thrilled about it are the ones that don't have to see Sam Hartman anymore, because he is that guy. I mean, he's gutsy, really. And look, you can kind of identify with that. He had a really scary situation with blood clots and didn't know. You came back from leukemia. What is that like to go through as a player and then come out the other side?
Well, I think what happens is you create this dream, right? As a little kid, or whenever your football dream starts to formulate of I want to be not only successful, and then once that success happens, there's this very streamlined process to go to the NFL, unlike a lot of the other major sports. If you're good in high school, you get recruited and go to college. If you're really good in college, then you'll get drafted into the NFL. And so you start to buy into that, I'm going to get there. And then you get disrupted by something completely out of your control. You talk about Sam and the blood clot and just the scare around that for him of not knowing whether I'll be able to ever play again. And that was the second time that's happened to him in his career, not knowing whether he'll be able to play again. And so it not only shocks you and kind of grounds the importance of what you're doing, but it also motivates you. When I'm coming back, I don't want anyone to talk about, he could have been good, but then this happened. You're right. There's always that kind of piece in your mind that drives you forward.
What was it in you like you mentioned, leukemia? You fought it, you beat it, you got through it. How was there ever a time you just thought it would never happen?
So, and not to anything, I had Ewing sarcoma, which is actually a different type of cancer, bone cancer, and there was for me, I was given a 10% chance of survival right off the bat, and then they told me I'd never be able to walk again. So there was no hey, you're gonna be able to be healthy but not play football again. It's you might not be healthy again, you might die. And so there was, for me, football continued to stay as a driving force, a motivation to get back, because I felt if I was healthy again, then playing football would be that's, it's ridiculous standard, but that would standard would be I'm back to where I was beforehand. And whether, I think that the treatment took some of my speed and power away a little bit, but being able to come back to the field was always a driving force in that goal to return.
What is, you were the Giants, what is Super Bowl week? What does that bring up for you?
Just joy, right? I mean, I got the pleasure of being a part of one Super Bowl my rookie year, and the whirlwind of rookie year, right? We had the NFL lockout. I went undrafted, not knowing what team I'm going to be on. July, the lockout's lifted, get a call from the Giants hey, training camp's tomorrow. Will you come up there and walk onto the team? Did that, and then, 4 months later, find yourself in Indianapolis, for the Super Bowl. And, just what is happening? And then 2 years before that, I was diagnosed with cancer. So, this whole thing was, just kind of a whirlwind. But I think the excitement around the Super Bowl, a lot of players in the moment find it tedious, right? Because there's a job at hand. We got to go out and play. But when you get to look back at it, you're I'm so thankful for that experience. And you just feel the excitement, right? You know what the players are doing, right? They're feeling that excitement of, my family's in town now, and I'm going to see them a little bit, but I got to focus on what I got to do. And then you get to really the night before the game, that Saturday night, and that's when you go back into that, hey, we're in the team hotel. We got our chapel. We got the, that pregame meal the next morning, and you get in that rhythm. And then I'll never forget, and I was looking for this, like you're on the sidelines for the Super Bowl, national anthem sung and all that stuff, but it's the flashes of the cameras, right? The flashes of the phones that you just remember seeing the kickoff and the stadium's going nuts, and you're like, we're there. Like, we're there on the field for that. That was really cool.
And that's very few people can say this.
Yes.
That Tom Brady lost a Super Bowl, and that was you guys.
Yes,
so.
that's true.
Yeah, the Giants were bad for him.
Yeah.
I know.
All right, so what you're doing, Join Team Freedom. Tell us a little bit about International Justice Mission, collaborating with the local justice systems partners to rescue victims of trafficking and bringing them to safety. It's a big deal.
Big deal. And so right now in the world, there's 50 million people currently in slavery, whether it's bonded labor slavery or forced marriage slavery internationally. That's 50 million people. That number is out of control. Join Team Freedom. Team Freedom is basically a coalition of professional athletes that have come together to partner with IJM, International Justice Mission, which is the largest anti-human trafficking organization in the world, to further this movement, further the cause, raise awareness about it, but also, like, we have our partners. We're taking a trip to Ghana in June, where we'll bring like 7 or 8 couples to Ghana. It's called Lake Vilota is in Ghana, and it's a place that is known and notorious for trafficking of young boys, where they'll take boys from their villages, they'll bring them out to this remote lake and have them be enslaved on fishing boats for their life, for their childhood. And so IJM is an organization that they'll investigate, they'll find these boys, they will go and raid these camps, bring the offenders to justice, free the slaves, and then provide legal counsel, provide aftercare for these boys. And that's just one example. This happens all over the world. In the Philippines, it's online sex trafficking. In Kenya, it's police brutality. In India, it's bonded labor slavery, where in India they still do a lot of dowries, where you have to pay a dowry to have your daughter be married. And so these men want to see their daughter have a future, and the only way to do that in these countries is to marry them off. They take out a loan from a businessman in town to have their daughter be married. That loan has an illegal interest rate on it, and now these business owners, in quotes, will then enslave this man, the rest of his entire family, his children, their children, and they work in rock quarries and brick kilns until an organization like IJM will come in, knock down the doors, and free them. So it's really, I'm so just honored to be able to be a part of that work and then support the heroes that are out in the field doing the work.
How did you get involved in this?
So IJM, again, nonprofits have all these acronyms, right? IJM is partners with PAO, Professional Athlete Outreach, which is it's the leading Christian ministry for pro athletes. So they have big conferences every year, and I've gone every year with my wife. And IJM presented one year and told a story of a survivor in Africa, actually from that Lake Vilota, and he came and spoke and shared his story about how his uncle had, his father died in just a freak accident. His uncle took him, who was going to take him to school, like to boarding school, instead took him to the lake and sold him to these slave owners. And he was then rescued by IJM and came back and told about his experience. And we heard that, and we're like, we need to do something. We need to do something, be a part of it. And so a year ago, started working for them full time. So now, a full-time job working for them and helping our athletes find their passion in the work too.
That's an unbelievable story, Mark. I mean, I cannot imagine a more noble cause than doing that. And we were really excited to talk to you anyway.
Yeah.
And this has been just incredibly eye-opening for us. So thanks for being here. We'd love to have you on. Again, we've got your information. We can come on, talk football, and let's continue to spread this message. So.
Sounds good. Thank you guys
Mark
very much.
Herzlich with Boston College, New York Giants, and what you just heard him discuss, it kind of makes you realize what is your worth right now, what is your why. This is 365 Sports.